Morning everyone and welcome back to This Week in F1, and this week F1 was at Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix, which of course meant for my delicate little European ass, this was a difficult wake up for me at 6 in the morning, and I complained about it in Australia. And I'm going to complain about it now because I think it's bullshit, because the corrupt FIA didn't listen to me about changing the race schedule to suit my exact needs, which is discrimination. Probably. Anyway, despite my objections, at 7 o'clock in the morning, we had qualifying, where Logan Sargent went into the barrier coming out of the final corner, ruining not only his car, but also his chances at driving it next year.
On a scale from 1 to 10, my friend, you're fucked.
But the North American noncery didn't stop there, with Lance Stroll getting knocked out in Q1, with Alonso making it all the way to Q3. And I said it last week, and the week before that, and so on and so forth. But
it's time to go!
And then we arrive in Q3, where Verstappen drove the first part of his Japanese revenge, finishing half a second in front of Piastri in P2. Half a second!
What took you so long, idiot?
Now, if that's the amount of time you last doing things in the bedroom, then that's an incredibly small amount of time. However, in racing, that's like 10 minutes. If you look at the graphic that gives you the relative distance between qualifying times, the Dutch destroyer of worlds is light years ahead. It's fucking ridiculous. That spaceship has a fucking hyperdrive or something. I don't know how to explain it other than simply Adrian Newey.
That man is a god.
Now on to the second part of Verstappen's revenge. 5 red lights went out and he almost runs Piastri off the road, then almost runs Norris off the road, and then activates his hyperdrive and fucks off into the distance.
Alright, Chewie, punch it.
Behind them though, it all got a bit too close. Perez squeezed Hamilton a bit too hard, meaning his left side touched the grass. Bottas and Albon smack into each other, causing Bottas to get a puncture and Albon's car to become a tractor. Then something happened with Zhou and Ocon, but I don't really know what.
I don't know, Jeff, has it?
All this brought out the safety car, which shuffled up the order, with most notably Perez falling down the field, which was just the start of his horror show of a race. But before we get into that, Logan Sargent decided that he really didn't want a seat for next year, smacking into the side of Bottas, ultimately causing Bottas and himself to retire and cementing his position in line at the job centre next season.
I'm gonna lose my job.
Now then, going back to the Mexican Mazepin, and he was making his way through the field until he crashed into the side of Kevin, causing the Danish driver to do a full 180, Perez to retire and get himself a 5-second penalty, which caused many issues, but we will get to that later. Then Lewis decided to do his best impression of Verstappen on Russell, which didn't make Russell very happy. But then again, what does? Then Hamilton got bored of listening to the Tory boy complain, so pitted and then put the Spanish grandpa in his place with a brilliant move through 130R. After this, about 50 different cars decided to retire from the race, including both Williams and Daddy's little Mazepin. Then the main talking point of the race happens as Perez comes back out onto the track after retiring to serve his 5-second penalty. Now this has caused some controversy because of course it has, but the way I see it is you can't blame Red Bull for taking advantage of a loophole in the rulebook. To be honest, I think it was quite a smart play from them.
Loophole, loophole, loophole.
Although, if you would have told me before the race the Red Bull retired twice, I would be quite disappointed. All in all though, if you are angry at this, you are just looking for a reason to be angry. It's not against the rules, it's just a loophole in the rules that Red Bull took advantage of.
Loophole.
But that wasn't the only talking point of the race. With 4 laps to go, Hamilton had caught up to Russell, who was doing a one-stop strategy, so his tyres were in a much worse state. However, he was still defending pretty hard against the ham sandwich. But then things got interesting as Sainz caught up to them, which gave them 2 options to defend. Either use what Lando and Sainz did, or let Lewis pass. And they chose to hold up Lewis and then let him pass. And to be honest, because Lewis was held up so much, he was never never going to catch Leclerc. So in my fat ass opinion, I think they should have tried to work together to keep Perez behind, but at the same time, it was for 5th and 6th, so it doesn't really matter that much anyway.
Who fucking cares?
And for the final part of his revenge, Verstappen took the fastest lap and top step on the podium, with Crash and Eddie claiming the final 2 places. So what does all this mean for the championship? Well, Verstappen pulls further ahead in the drivers' standings, and Red Bull win the Constructors' Championship, which, in all fairness, was a given from about race week 3.
I fucking knew it!
Hamilton cements himself a bit more firmly in P3, whilst Mercedes lost a small bit of ground to Ferrari. McLaren's excellent double podium gets them within touching distance of Aston Martin, or more accurately, Fernando Alonso in the deadweight. And the most important result of this week, P10, was a bit strange, with Gasly taking it, although for some reason they swapped their drivers around at the final corner. So, well done to anyone who predicted that. And there are still 2 drivers yet to score points. Now on to the news, and I want to start by talking about the trophies for the Grand Prix, which were KISS activated. On one hand, that's quite cool, you know, new technology in the trophies, personalised, I quite like that. But on the other hand, what the fuck? Moving on, and to AlphaTauri's driver lineup for next season being revealed as Ricky and Tsunoda. Now, while I am happy as a fan of the Australian Smile Monkey, even I have to admit he's done nothing to earn that seat in comparison to Mr. Lawson. And on the topic of Liam Lawson, he has reportedly been guaranteed a 2025 seat. And while this might soften the blow, I do feel that it's very harsh on the Kiwi not to be getting a seat in 2024. Lando Norris has got himself a new record, as he is now the driver with the most points who hasn't won a race, which isn't exactly a record you want, but it's still a record nonetheless. And from one unwanted thing to another, and after his shambles of a weekend, Logie Bear's seat is reportedly under threat from Drugovich. So it's really make or break time for the American. Speaking of failing drivers, and Nyck de Vries is now attending Harvard Business School, which means he can now use his clear voice in a better way. Toto Wolff tried to convince James Vowles to bring in Schumacher to Williams, even going as far as sending him sim data. However, it wasn't difficult to reject when Sargent's dad was sending him money.
Show me the money!
And now to the world of endurance racing, where it's been revealed that Alex Albon is going to be competing in the 24 Hours of Daytona. And given F1 drivers' history in 24-hour racing, it should be a piece of cake for him. And finally, Xbox have signed an agreement with Alpine to become their official console partner, and have now changed their name to XX_FazeAlpine XX. In a bit.